once again. Hope you enjoyed your break and got to meet some interesting folks during the speed networking session. I am very privileged to be joined by Vish, CRO at Esper. He is going to be focusing on pipeline quality and your lack of focus on it. Vish, very excited to have you here. Looking forward to hearing your talk.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Gary, and absolutely happy to be here. So let me jump straight into the material. Hey everyone, just to quickly introduce myself, my name is Vishwanath. I've been with Esper, which is a SaaS company based out of Seattle, for the last 2.5 years. I joined them right post their Series A in 2020. So Esper is into Android DevOps and MDM, which is any company having a lot of Android devices, such as smartphones, kiosks, or tablets. Um, they manage their platform. They manage the devices out of our cloud platform. Some of the big names include Taco Bell and Climber in US, for example. Okay, so I started as the first RevOps hire in this company, setting up the sales and finance operations. And I've also been involved in marketing operations and CS operations to some extent. And prior to Esper, I've worked in various different sectors and functions, as you can see in the screen, for about 10 years. And a lot of these different functions have given me a very good perspective, and all of that has come very handy um, in my current RevOps role at Esper. Okay, so I'm going to be focusing on the pipeline data quality, and let's look at the fundamentals on why it is very important. So pipeline is actually the tangible and articulated representation of sales process in CRM. So it is nothing but the snapshot of the sales process into the CRM. And pipeline by itself is also very useful input into forecasting and sales planning. So a healthy pipeline reflects very well on the sales process and how it's snapshotted, whereas a healthy forecast reflects very well on the consistency of the sales process and the consistency by which we are snapshotting as the pipeline. Just a quick point. When I say a healthy pipeline and forecasting, from a sales point of view, a healthy pipeline just means are we hitting our targets? But from a RevOps standpoint, um, I'm talking about whether the pipeline is actually capturing all the key attributes of the sales process very well or not. Okay, so let's dig in further. So what constitutes a very good pipeline quality? So from the sales point of view, it's about data hygiene. You have quantitative and qualitative variables such as stage amount, close date, meeting notes, next steps, and there is a sales alignment and cadence which happens across teams, across sales motions to ensure that all the sales teams are aligned with regard to all of these different factors which are captured in the pipeline, and that's pretty much the sales perspective. Now, the RevOps point of view is about the pipeline in consideration for something like forecasting. So, where do we actually define the starting and the end of the pipeline is a very important factor. For example, um, so while sales might uh, start off with prospecting at the discovery stage, we typically experience that at the discovery stage, the amount of an opportunity might be $100,000. A stage or two down the line, it ends up as something like $30,000. So consistency and quality is pretty much where the pipeline in consideration actually begins from a RevOps perspective. And also, for example, if an opportunity is part of the pipeline, hey, is it actually in the pipeline? Is it active or is it dormant? Even though it might be part of the entire pipeline closing this quarter. So again, these are just some points that we are scratching on the surface, and let's just go one level deeper. So the way I've experienced pipeline, so there are different levels of pipeline in a CRM that we've seen. So the first level is all pipeline data that the sales enters into the CRM, and a subset of that is reviewed weekly or bi-weekly for all the deals which are, let's say, closing for this month or for this quarter. And finally, from the RevOps perspective, when we are looking at forecasting, we still need to subset a portion of the active pipeline to say that, hey, what is the portion of the pipeline that we need to be taking for forecasting. So just as an example, we used to actively mark some of these opportunities as active or dormant, and then subset the pipeline and forecast on that. And later we took that back to the sales leadership, and they decided that, hey, let's not do that. Let's just proactively remove a lot of these opportunities which are not really active, or maybe they have gone cold. So the level 2 and 3 that we see were effectively combined into a single level, and that actually reduced a lot of our effort. So the three levels of pipeline that I've shown, ideally we can combine them to two or even one level if that's possible. And once the pipeline is determined for forecasting, um, we still need to understand what is the data representation. Meaning, if there are 20 different factors which influence the forecast, what are those crucial 3 or 4 different factors which are very, very important? Because factor analysis by itself is a big subject in statistics, but from a business standpoint, if we identify those, let's say, 3 or 4 factors, we really need to focus on ensuring that they are being snapshotted consistently with good quality across time for the forecasting to be effective. Okay, let's take a look at an example. So here you see a picture of a clear water lake. So the sales process represents the currents in the lake, and how stable or how chaotic those currents are. The pipeline is basically the water in the lake, and the quality of the pipeline is nothing but how clear or turbid the water is. And the forecast is nothing but the bottom of the lake and how visible it is. So if you have a very stable and consistent sales motion, the water is going to be really clear and you can see the bottom. If you have a really inconsistent and chaotic sales motion, it's possible that the sales might close the quarter with flying colors, but from a RevOps standpoint, it's not really helpful with regard to forecasting and predictability. Okay, so putting it together, all the teams need to be aligned on what is the sales process and how it's articulated or snapshotted into the CRM. The data hygiene and consistency is what determines the subset of all data that can be considered for RevOps for, let's say, forecasting. And going back to the sales motion, we need to understand which are the sales motions which are consistent, which ones are new, and we need to segment by different sales motions because each of them may have different level of variance. We have experienced this ourselves. Some of the older sales motions have been very, very consistent. They have a less than 10% or even a 5% variance on the forecast on a quarterly basis. Some of the newer sales motions have had more than 20-30% on the forecast. So yeah. And okay, so this is my final slide. So the consistent sales process is the strategic foundation to a quality pipeline and quality forecast. Maintaining pipeline hygiene is very, very important, but it comes at a secondary or at a tactical level. So it is the sales process and its consistency and the way it's snapshotted, which clearly determines the outcome, which is the forecasting. And remember the Clear Lake analogy, which connects the sales process, the pipeline, and the forecast. I would like to say that this is what has worked for us, between Series A and now we are post Series C. I'm sure that as we scale up, there are a lot of different complexities which come into picture. But yeah, this has worked for us till now. So yeah, thanks for this opportunity once again, and happy to take any questions.
Hey Vish, great job. Thanks so much for the chat. You talked about this being important. Clear understanding, visibility into pipeline being important for all teams. Um, what do you mean by all teams? You literally mean every part of the organization, and does that vary depending on the size or maturity of a company?
Right. So I just meant by different teams, meaning some teams might be geographically divided, like we have a APAC team versus a US team, and also within these geographies we have different divisions, like which are focused on inbound or outbound or channel partnerships, or just managed expansions. So from that point of view, yeah, I'm specifically focusing on the sales teams, not the entire organization. But yeah, even within these teams, I've seen sometimes that there is a misalignment with regard to some of these terminologies. Um, Something as simple as the sales stages. What does it mean when an opportunity is qualified at the first stage, where it's qualified? What is the meaning of a qualified opportunity? What is the meaning of a proof of concept, for example? So we've seen opportunities where teams have had different alignments, and we've had to do cadence and communication to realign all the teams on the definitions of all the stages, for example. Um, so yeah, that's pretty much it.
Cool. And listen, you're probably not oblivious to the fact that like RevOps is an exploding and has been exploding for a while. Um, how important do you think is alignment around pipeline or understanding pipeline to other parts of that kind of RevOps organization? If you subscribe to the idea that RevOps is really made up of like marketing, sales, ops, and in some cases CS.
Yeah. So RevOps is definitely critical in that we are all we are looking at very very operational elements, such as managing the tech stack, managing the data, and we also manage at the high level KPIs, and looking at the strategic performance of the organization. So the pipeline, very interestingly, falls between the strategic layer and the operational layer. In that, yeah, we are looking at the pipeline data, and how it's being generated, how it's well attributed at the operational level, and at the strategic level, we are looking at how it's being generated, what are the sources of generation, um, are we meeting the targets, and so on and so forth. So yeah, from a RevOps standpoint, I think pipeline is one of those critical elements, given the fact that RevOps, in today's function, works with the sales, marketing, CS, finance, and the leadership. So pipeline is at the heart of all of these different teams, and yeah, looking at both the low level, which is the operational level, and the high level, which is the strategic KPI level. um, RevOps can give a 360 picture of the pipeline to all of these different teams.
Right.
Um,
We just had a really interesting chat with Jason Reichel. He's a CRO of Trust Layer, and his premise was that the repeatable sales process is dead. Right, this notion of like the same stages over and over again, shifting from marketing to an SDR for qualification, and then to an AE for the sales motion. And really it's more about taking a position as like a trusted advisor to this prospect and customer, and being consistent across that customer journey. When you think about that concept and the fact that like, hey, to accurately measure pipeline, there needs to be an underlying process. There needs to be steps that everybody follows. There needs to be a framework by which we measure. How would you like respond to Jason's idea that there isn't a repeatable sales process anymore?
that's a very good point. Um, I'm not able to comment on that. Maybe I need a bit more of time, because as we scale the company, definitely the sales strategies, the whole GTM strategy, I see it's slowly shifting But yeah, I'm not in the exact position to comment on that. Maybe 6 months to 1 year down the line, I would be happy to take on that question, to be
Yeah,
frank.
Vish, maybe take a look at his hot take, and
Okay.
maybe you can come back on the next Hot Takes Live and share your view on that. But on that note, thank you so much for joining. Very interesting topic. Thank you to everyone who's watching and participating. We will be taking another 5-minute break, but please don't hesitate to come back and join Tyler Lassard and hear what he has to say. Thanks again, everyone.
Yeah. Thanks, Gary.